Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Goldster conversation. I'm thrilled today to welcome Cheryl Kennedy McDonald, who is the author of this book. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. Yoga Pause. Let me hold it back here. Yoga Pause. And we're going to talk today in what is World Menopause Month. October is World Menopause Month, and we're going to talk about why yoga is good for you, and the fact that finally women are being empowered to talk about menopause. It's no longer a dirty word. So, Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us today in a very different time zone.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, excited to be here.
And what time is it with you? Tell us where you are in the world.
I'm in Singapore just now, and it's 7 p.m. here.
And tell us about why you got into yoga, because it didn't begin with this book, did it? Tell us about how you
No, it
started
didn't.
a love of yoga.
So I've been practicing yoga for about 25 years, and I've been teaching around about 20. I started. I got into yoga. I went out with a Swedish guy at uni, and I started yoga with him. And relationship didn't last very long, but my love of yoga did, so that was great. And I trained as a yoga teacher. I loved it. I worked as a business analyst, and I just thought, I can't give up this job as a business analyst to be a yoga teacher because it's not a real job. So then, I started to move towards getting married and having kids. And I was thinking about, I was actually terrified of childbirth. So I started to think, okay, listen, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I started looking into things like hypnobirthing and prenatal yoga, and I became really engrossed in it. And so I trained as a prenatal yoga teacher, as a hypnobirthing practitioner, and it just grew from there. So that became Yoga Bellies for pregnancy, postnatal, and then we started to work with women with menstrual cycle irregularities and fertility issues, and that then evolved onto Yoga Pause, which is for women over 40 going through the menopause journey. But what I found is, so Yoga Bellies in its current format has been going for 15 years. But what I found was that the ladies who came to us like 15 years ago with their babies are now all heading into menopause, and they wanted to keep coming. So, but and me too, I'm in that stage too now, my son was just born. So we all kind of we've moved in this journey together.
And so this is such a fascinating thing because you say the word menopause, and that's what I'd always ever heard. And then suddenly, a few years ago, people started to talk about perimenopause. And one thing I was really interested to read in your book is that menopause is literally one day. Tell us about the
Yeah.
menopause journey and what the terminology is that's
Yeah.
so different from what it was when I was growing up, when I knew about my mum going through it.
Well, this is the thing. No one knows anything about menopause. Even today, like you said, we're just finding out about
Mm.
perimenopause. So when I talk to people about menopause, so many people say to me, "Oh, you can't be menopause. You're too young to be menopause," because we have this idea that if you're in menopause, you're in your 60s or 70s, and that's not the case at all.
Mm.
So, at 35, we know that women's fertility decreases at 35. Everyone knows that it's harder to have a baby, but that actually means that you're going into perimenopause. That's why it's harder to have a baby. And with my pregnant clients, as women are having kids over 35, over 40, I'm seeing so many of them come back to class and they're going straight into perimenopause, especially the ones that have had IVF, because that can actually release excess estrogen, which can increase the severity and make perimenopause come quicker as well. So there's
Yeah,
all
right.
these things going on. Um, but yeah, so the fact is that so you have perimenopause and it can go on from anything from 2 to 12 years, all right? And as I said, that can start any point from 35 plus, roughly, okay? For most women, it's around about 40, but sometimes you don't even have any symptoms. So it could just be something like your period starts to look slightly different. It could be a longer cycle, a shorter cycle, heavier, lighter, worse PMS, menstrual cramps when you never had them before. So just slight changes in the menstrual cycle, and that's a strong indication that you're going into perimenopause. So this goes on and on and on. And the actual menopause is, as you said, literally just one day. And that is defined as exactly 12 months from your last menstrual cycle. So during perimenopause, 1 month you might have a 14-day cycle, then a 90-day cycle, and that can go on. But it's once you've had no menstrual cycle for 12 months, that one day, that is menopause. And everything after that is postmenopause. So you're going to have early postmenopause, and that's when the periods have stopped for 12 months, but you are still experiencing symptoms like hot flashes, insomnia, night sweats, all these different joys that we get to experience. And then late perimenopause is when the menstrual cycle stopped and the symptoms have stopped as well. So there are even different stages of late postmenopause as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And why is it that, I mean, it's extraordinary to me that I looked up, there's something like 6 menopause clinics in the entirety of the UK.
Yeah.
And yet, not every person goes through, well, not every woman goes through childbirth. And yet, there are multiple, quite rightly, kind of prenatal and postnatal clinics. But every single woman, if she lives to that age, is going to go through the menopause.
Absolutely.
Why do you think it is that GPs will say they don't really know? They haven't been trained in it. I've heard GPs say, I haven't been trained in it. And yet it is an absolute certainty for 51% of their patients when they get beyond perimenopause age. So why do you think this is that we don't know anything about it and that even doctors are really unsure? It's not as if it's a new thing.
I think certainly from what I find, women don't want to admit that they're in menopause. And that's because society tells us that as women, our value decreases as we get older. Current society values women as young, as fertile, as being a mother, being a wife. And as you move towards menopause, obviously you can't have kids anymore. You're not fertile. So you're seen as being old and dried up. And we have this image of, the crone, the old crone hobbling about and, no teeth and all this kind of thing. And that's just not the case at all, especially now when people are able to look after themselves. We have so many alternative remedies. And HRT as well is also a great option. I very much believe in an integrated approach to menopause, so I'm not anti-HRT. My husband is a cardiologist and he works with a lot of women in menopausal age as well, because actually women are at a greater risk of cardiovascular problems in menopause as well and postmenopause. So he works with a lot of women at this age too. And he feels that he's been sent people and they don't know anything, they don't even know they're in menopause. I think another problem with menopause, apart from the fact we don't want to admit it, is the fact that the tests for perimenopause are very unreliable.
Yeah.
So hormonal tests will test estrogen levels, and everyone thinks in menopause estrogen goes down, which it does after menopause. But in perimenopause, estrogen and progesterone are going like this on a daily basis, up, down, up, down. So if you go one day and get tested for estrogen levels, they could be through the roof. So your doctor goes, oh, you're not in perimenopause, you're fine. You could go the following week and your estrogen is low, and oh, you are in perimenopause. So that is completely unreliable.
Wow.
You have to just go on symptoms in
Yeah.
perimenopause. There is no hormonal test that can conclusively tell you, yes, you're in perimenopause.
That's really fascinating and quite extraordinary as
Yeah,
well. Why do you think
absolutely.
it is that doctors claim they're not being trained in it? I'm sure that a training manager would say yes they are, but there's obviously not enough emphasis on it. And the fact that there have been set up
No.
recently a lot of private menopause clinics, which are obviously only open to a few people. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that the healthcare system as a whole is so reluctant to look at what is happening to women?
Yeah. Again, we could go down the whole looking at the patriarchy in societies dealing with women in general. So, if men had menstrual periods, I'm sure we would all get menstrual leave. We don't.
Oh,
So I think the same
totally.
applies
Yeah.
to menopause. No money has been put into research in HRT. They're using the same HRT as they used 30 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, there's just no research or concern for it. And also, women don't want to talk about it. So a lot of the time, women are suffering in silence. It's been really refreshing to see, especially in the UK, that they have brought in menopause laws for workplaces as well, which is
Yes.
fantastic. We really need this because I have seen so many women absolutely debilitated, unable to work for various reasons because they can't sleep through crippling insomnia. I've actually worked with a couple of women as well with pelvic floor issues, vaginal atrophy so bad that they can't walk.
Gosh.
Um, yeah, it's because they haven't, if they'd been given HRT at the appropriate time, then they wouldn't have been able to remedy that. But they weren't because they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to tell anyone. And often, as you say, GPs are not trained in it and they don't even have anyone to refer on to.
Yeah.
So women are just kind of hitting a brick wall. They don't know anything about it. The GPs don't know anything about it. And the GPs don't have anywhere to send them.
And so the fact that we now have a World Menopause Month and a Menopause Day every year, National Menopause Day, might be International Menopause Day, actually. This is hopefully going to start helping, isn't it? Do you think?
Yes. I think it's so important to raise awareness, and so much of what I do is off the yoga mat as well. So, as I said, I very much believe in an integrated approach to menopause, but I also believe that yoga is not just stretching on the yoga mat. It's about taking those things into your lifestyle. It's about what you eat. It's about how you look after yourself. It's about getting sleep, all of these things. Because if you're just going to pull some shapes on the yoga mat twice a week, that's not going to do much for you. You'll get the same benefits as you would have from an aerobics class. But if you really want to make it into yoga, you have to take it into your lifestyle as well and make that a whole yoga lifestyle.
And so your subtitle to your book, Yoga Pause, is What Women Need to Know After 40 and Why Yoga is the Answer. So tell us,
Yes.
why is yoga the answer?
Well, I mean, as I've just said, when I'm referring to yoga, everyone thinks yoga is what you do in the yoga mat, okay? And that's why how most people come to start with. And that's great. That's a fantastic introduction. But as you keep practicing, you start to learn that there's so much more to it. And we were talking about meditation earlier as well. And yoga is actually a moving meditation. So it's about joining the breath with the movement. And when we do that, we're actually meditating when we're practicing yoga.
Hmm.
And it's about taking that into your life as well. So in my book, I talk about mindful eating and using these different practices alongside taking that mindfulness off the yoga mat and into your life. And that's how we integrate it into every part of our life. But it's also, when we're talking about mindful eating, it's about being aware of not just how you're treating your body, physically, but what you're putting into your body and how that feels right now when you're eating it and how it feels afterwards. And when you start to become aware of that, it becomes really easy to not eat junk food.
Hmm.
Because and I said this, I did a post on Instagram and I was like, I don't want to ruin anyone's gummy bears, but like it makes it really hard to sit and eat a big bag of sweets when you're going, oh, this is going to make me feel I'm going to be asleep in half an hour. So it's just like bringing awareness to every part of your life. And I think a lot of it in yoga pose is about mindset as well. So having that yoga mindset, and one of the key tenets of yoga philosophy and also Buddhism, I'm practicing Buddhist, is impermanence. So it's the fact that nothing is permanent, and that's so useful in menopause because we're changing. So many of us are mourning the fact that we're not 20 anymore. Well, do you know what? You're never going to be 20 again. So you can sit here and you can be really sad about that for the rest of your life, or you can look at how to live your best life, how to stay active, how to look forward to the future, how to start having all those adventures that you'd never had the chance to do before because you were working full time and you were looking after babies and husbands and all the other things you have to do. Now is the time. Like I've always said, like my 40s are best AKG, hands down. Financially independent. I've got freedom. My son's a teenager. I can travel. I can do all the things I want. I'm teaching yoga for a living. It's brilliant. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. Because I used to be a business analyst that lived in Glasgow. And now I'm a yoga teacher that lives in Singapore and has a house in Bali. So, it's accessible to anyone, but you just need to have the positive mindset and like, this is the start of my life. It's not the end. This is the start. This is me, who I really am, and this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
And so this is great. So it's largely about changing your mindset. And as you say, embracing
Absolutely.
each decade as it comes. So we're going to look at a couple of different scenarios here. I want you
Okay.
to think about people who've been practicing yoga a long time. I started
Yeah.
practicing yoga in my 20s. I love it. What should I be doing differently now at this age? What is it that I need to change my yoga practice to make it beneficial for me as I move through the menopause journey?
So there's a few tips for people that already have a yoga practice. I would say, I mean, depending on what kind of practice you have just now, a lot of people have a very dynamic hot yoga, flow yoga, whatever, this kind of thing. That's great. You can keep doing that if it feels good. But really, it's about bringing awareness to how your body feels during the practice and after it. Allow yourself to use props and modifications. And that's about releasing the ego because you're going, I used to be able to do this back bend
Oh
and it
yes,
doesn't
that's
feel
just
good
spoken to
anymore.
me hugely. Yeah.
Right.
Oh no, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to stop the block. No.
Exactly. And I do it as well. I'm like, oh, I used to be able to spring up into this. And I can't. So, you know,
That
you
makes it
have to,
so much better if you can't.
yeah, you have to release your ego and go, right, do you know what? There's no shame in this. My body needs different things now. So if you've got that dynamic practice, think about, you know, introducing a yin or restorative practice at the end for maybe the last 15 minutes. So not just savasana, but really winding the practice down a bit. Or having a completely, maybe you do dynamic yoga twice a week and then you have one day you do restorative. Another key tip I would say, but I say this to everyone at every life stage, is to become aware of your menstrual cycle. So start tracking that, but that's especially useful in perimenopause because your period is everywhere, okay? It's 2 weeks, it's 6 weeks, it's all over the place. But that helps you realize when you're going closer to menopause as well, because it becomes more and more erratic. And it helps you track those symptoms as well. By tracking the menstrual cycle as well, it helps you identify the times in the month when you're naturally more energetic. So that's round about ovulation, around the middle of the month. And you know, the times when you want to be alone, you're less sociable, you're more introspective and reflective. That's round about your periods, just before and during your period. And at that time, we should really be resting. So I don't practice at all the first 3 days of my period.
Right. Wow.
Whenever that decides to turn up, I don't practice at all. I may line my yoga mat with a bolster and a hot water bottle. You know, it's all about self-care. If I want chocolate, I'm going to have my chocolate. If I have to sleep all day, I'm going to do that as well. So it's about knowing when that's coming and making accommodations. Now, obviously, during perimenopause, that's a bit more difficult because you don't know when it's coming. But if you can identify when your period is, then at least you know that in a couple of weeks' time, you're going to be round about ovulation and you can say, okay, if I'm going to have a party, maybe I should do it in 2 weeks' time. You know, so it helps you plan your lifestyle. And when you're tuning into those natural energetic fluctuations, it really helps you plan your life much better. Like if I'm, you know, hitting PMS and menstruation, I don't plan any big meetings or anything important because my energy goes right down. But if we can relax and restore at that time of the month, it means that when we get to ovulation, we are going to be full of energy and we can just go wild for 2 weeks. We're going to be sociable. We're going to be coming up with ideas, making things happen that we couldn't do for those 2 weeks of the month. But that's very much what I see as well. You know, we have this idea, it's about consistency, must go to the gym every day, must do this every day, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, for years and years, I would do like 3 weeks, brilliant, brilliant, gym yoga. And then there would be a week. After 3 weeks, I would always be like, oh, I can't do this. Eventually I realized that's because you're premenstrual. You couldn't do it.
Interesting.
But yeah, so women are not linear like men. Men are linear. They can do that. Our consistency has to be tuned into our biological rhythms and hormones.
And so, taking another scenario, okay, we're going to think
Mhm.
about somebody who's in the postmenopausal period. What should they be doing? And this is someone I'm thinking who's never done yoga before.
Yep.
How can they start getting themselves into a new practice and a new mindset? What advice would you have for somebody who thinks yoga's not for me? I've reached this age, I've never done it, I'm not at all bendy, it's not going to
Yep.
work for me.
The fantastic thing about yoga is you can start at any stage. So I have so many women in the YogaPause classes who come along and they've never done yoga before. They aren't even doing any exercise or they haven't done exercise in the last 10 years. You know, but they can come and everyone for one posture, as I'm sure you know, in the class, someone can do it this way, someone can do it somewhere else. But what you want is a yoga teacher that knows how to support you, how to use props, how to allow you to practice at your own level. That's the most important thing. But you can even start doing it at home. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to do some YouTube videos until I feel a bit more confident, read books on it. That's absolutely fine until you go to a class. But make sure that you've got a yoga teacher that understands menopause and what you're going through. Things they want to be focusing on is bone density and osteopenia and osteoporosis. They're huge. Cardiovascular issues as well after post-menopause. These are big things. So a lot of weight-bearing poses, a lot of standing postures is what we want to focus on as well. And we also do YogaPause Strong, where we actually use handheld weights and wrist and ankle weights to just give you that extra weight to enhance the weight-bearing exercise.
Yeah, brilliant. So some great advice there. And I would just like to give a shout out to Goldster as well. We have fantastic yoga teachers on Goldster and they do look at different levels. So if anybody listening to this has not yet done a Goldster yoga class, I'd really recommend it. And you can, of course, also send the teacher a note if you want them to adapt it for anything or want them to be aware of anything you're going through. But I think the message here is it's never too late to start yoga,
No,
and that it will
never.
have benefits for whatever time in your life.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love it. And it's one of those things that, I've times in life when I haven't done it very much, and going back to it again is always such a joy. And the first time you think, oh God, this is terrible. And I can say it comes back remarkably fast. That muscle memory
It really
is
does.
wonderful.
But
So
we've had so many postmenopausal women who've come along and they've been experiencing so many symptoms, and even just to practice once or twice a week has made a huge difference to their symptoms.
yeah. Yeah, now we've got a question that's come in. And do remember, you can put your questions in the chat, Cheryl. Now, there's a journal that goes with your book, but they can't
Yes,
find it. Is it out yet? How can they get hold of it?
it is out. I don't know why you can't find it on Amazon. It's really annoying. It's called Unleash Your Radiant Life. But if you go to the Yoga Pause book in Amazon, if you click on my name, it'll take you to all the books I've written, and it's in there.
Great, thank you. So it is
So
available
yeah,
now.
it is there, but I've no idea why it doesn't come up in the search.
Ah, so maybe the algorithm hasn't picked up on it yet.
Yeah, I've no idea.
So there's the big buzz at the moment that I'm seeing about all over social media and the media is balancing hormones. What can you
Yes.
tell us about this and how yoga can help with this? And what does it actually mean? Because I think people are quite confused as to what they're meant to be doing at the moment.
Okay. Okay. There are so many things that you can do to balance hormones. Now, yoga can help balance hormones throughout life. And with the yoga pause practice and our yoga bellies classes, we actually use postures and practices that pressurize different glands, which activate the release of different hormones throughout the body. So that's one of the ways. On a very basic level, every yoga practice will also stop the release of cortisol, the stress hormone as well. And also we release different hormones. So endorphins, obviously, the happy hormones. So that's going to make us less anxious, get rid of that low mood. And we're also releasing oxytocin, the love hormone as well. And that's that one that makes you feel all cuddly and lovely, and it's fantastic for new mums as well. And we also release it during pregnancy. So we're releasing all of these gorgeous hormones. But one of the main things as well is sleep. When or we don't have sleep, people do not realize the importance of it. We know when we don't have it, but 6 hours a night is just not going to crack it over 40. It's really not. You're looking at 8, 9, 10 hours if possible. And I know we can't do that every night, but that's what you're aiming for, because that is going to really help balance the endocrine system and help get some hormonal balance and balance those crazy mood swings that you're going through.
So, in terms of sleep, which is something I'm hearing from
Yeah.
everybody, and I think it's
Mhm.
something that's particularly happened in the world since lockdowns and everybody
Yeah,
changing the way that they work and then going back into what they did before, I think sleep problems are becoming much more prevalent. What
definitely.
tips do you have? Are there particular yoga tips that you can share with us
Mhm.
that could help people start to get into a good routine of sleeping again?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I have heard, I mean, that is the biggest problem that I hear from all women at every life stage. Can't sleep, just can't sleep. So what I recommend is a number of different things. So I would recommend, again, thinking about that yogic lifestyle. So different supplements that I would recommend for hormonal balance and to enhance sleep, which are going to help. So ashwagandha is really good. Um, Also, Blue Lotus tea is a favorite of mine. I drink that before bed, and it's actually my husband and I drink it together on the balcony. So it's like a nice soothing ritual. Nice teapot, Blue Lotus tea, and you sleep like a baby with that. Also, calcium and
Well,
magnesium you want to be taking as well before bed. All women over 40 should be taking calcium, magnesium, and zinc. And vitamin D as an absolute basic, all right. So taking those before bed, because magnesium makes you sleepy, so you don't want to take that one in the morning. Taking
uh-huh.
those before bed, with your ashwagandha, with your Blue Lotus tea. But I don't look at any screens after 8 p.m. So I really start to wind it down, whether that's TV or phones, it's all off. So keeping away from that blue light, and then bringing in a yoga practice. So that could even be, when you say yoga practice, people think jumping about in the gym for an hour. It doesn't have to be that. It can
Yeah.
be 10 minutes with your blanket, with your cushion, with some aromatherapy, something like lavender, nice and relaxing, an eye mask, hot water bottle, just calming your mind, lying down, focusing on what you've done that day. Journaling as well, I recommend that before bed. And just, having this ritual that is like, okay, it's this time of night and I am now on wind down mode. So I know people with kids, that's going to be like, get them to bed and then you can do it. But again, it's time for everyone's different. So just do what you can. But it's creating that routine and making sure that your practice before bed is very yin, very restorative, and relaxing, just enhancing that vibe.
And talk to me a little bit about meditation, because that's something else that people often feel they need to try and get into. But the other thing I hear all the time, and we've had this in other Goldster conversations before, where
Yeah.
people say, yeah, okay, everyone says meditate, but I can't meditate.
Yeah.
What would you say to people who think they can't meditate?
Well, that's because everyone thinks meditation is sitting like this on a cushion for hours, and yeah, that can be meditation, but there's lots of different ways you can do it. And in my book, I talk about, living mindfully and bringing awareness to everything that you're doing. So, lots of different ways. For example, practicing yoga, when you are moving and joining the breath with the movement. So, for every inhale, an upward movement, for every exhale, a downward movement, that's actually a moving meditation. If you're just focusing on the breath and the movement, that is a meditation. You're focused on that movement. And that's a brilliant way to meditate if you can't sit still. All right. Because so many people find their mind wandering. If you're not into yoga, that's fine. Another way you can do it is a walking meditation. So that can be, I would recommend taking your shoes off if you can. I know it's pretty cold in the UK just now, but if you can take your shoes off, fantastic. Walk in the ground, that's very grounding. That's some earthing, and just being aware of what's going on around about you, the smells, the weather, the people in the background. It doesn't matter if it's if there's noisy traffic. These things don't matter. You just acknowledge them, you become aware of them, and then you let them pass through your mind. So I always say, think of it like a cloud passing by. It's there, it's there, but it's just going past. You're not taking it in. So just breathing and walking, that's a meditation as well. And on my
I find
podcast, I've
swimming
actually,
quite meditative.
yes,
I find
everyone has their
swimming
own
is a really great
meditation.
way of meditating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so many people do. It doesn't have to be sitting on a cushion chanting. It doesn't have to be that. It can be lots of things. Another one I see is when you're washing the dishes. So everyone does that. Just be aware, just think of nothing but actually washing the dishes. And you probably think, oh my God, how mundane. But, just looking at the plate, the bubbles, just feeling the plate, just bringing awareness to the whole thing. You can actually meditate when you're doing the dishes, just basic everyday stuff.
That's a really good tip. Thank you. And so I think there's a lot of people who feel they can't
Yeah,
meditate, but they're perhaps even doing things in life that is quite meditative that they just
yeah,
don't think as meditation.
absolutely.
So let's have a think about foods. Can you
Mhm.
give us any top tips of generally? I mean, I know it's obviously different for everybody, but what are the kind of foods that people should be incorporating into their life or reducing in their life?
Okay, so my approach to foods is yes, there are good foods and there are bad foods. Obviously, we know that. So all the processed stuff, obviously, try and cut down on that as much as possible. But again, I know there's a price issue attached to organic foods, grass-fed beef, all this kind of thing. So what I would say is try and definitely increase protein in your diet. And for women, you need that for your bone density. You absolutely need more protein, and two boiled eggs in the morning is not going to cut it. You really need more protein. You want to be consuming protein at every single meal. So your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner. Um, Again, try to opt for natural options. I touched upon mindful eating earlier, but mindfully thinking about what is this I'm putting in my body? Where has it been? What's on it? What's in it? How does it make me feel when I taste it? When you start to think like that with synthetic and unnatural foods, you start to go, oh, actually, it doesn't taste that good. It's about changing your mindset to actual foods, but increasing protein. And everyone hates this one, decreasing sugar and caffeine and alcohol. Nobody wants to hear those ones. That's
Oh,
what everyone loves.
I think
But the
half of the audience is
no,
just going to leave right now.
everyone's going to leave. I know exactly. I mean, I'm not saying you have to do it, but at least cut down on all of these things. And I've worked with women. I've just seen so many improvements when they've managed to cut out one or all of those. Caffeine for me is a big deal. I love caffeine. Big dopamine hit. but I've really had to cut down on it, and I'm working on cutting it out altogether because it does have a really bad impact on my cortisol levels. So I get really stressed or anxious after drinking coffee. I'm sure a lot of your listeners will have that as well, but really changing your attitude to food. I've never been a fan of diets, but actually mindful eating is the only way that I personally am able to control what I eat without really thinking about it. So I'm aware of the food, but I'm not having to restrict myself because I'm automatically inside going, this isn't good for me, and I'm going to do what's best for me. So
Yeah.
it automatically becomes, well, I want the good stuff. I'm going to take the fruit instead of the biscuit.
And when you're working with clients who come to your classes, and some of them are live sessions and some of them are online, is that correct?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. What do you find that they come to you and talk about, and that the changes that they make once they start embracing the fact that they're not going to do yoga as they did at 21, now that they're 41 or 61 or whatever? What do they share with you about the change that yoga has brought to them?
I think the biggest mindset shift for women, and I've seen this at every life stage, I've seen this in pregnant women and postpartum women as well, the inability to accept that we are women and that we have all of these significant biological transitions throughout life that make us different from men. I know, growing up in the 80s, you were told it's all about power suits and being this big businesswoman and we're just like men. Well, we're not just like men. We're equal to men, but we're completely different. And by ignoring that biology, by trying to ignore our periods, ignore pregnancy, ignore menopause, we're actually doing ourselves a huge disservice because we can't just go like that. We're like this every day of the month, and you have to tune into it.
Yeah.
So, the biggest thing I've seen is people getting their head around that. So I remember in a pregnancy class, I had a woman tell me she was going to run a marathon 4 days postpartum.
Wow.
I never saw her after her pregnancy, but I imagine it didn't happen. But things like people trying to get just like in total denial that their life was going to change because they were pregnant.
Mhm.
So the same with menopause. We're all encouraged, get your Botox, stay young, stay thin, all of this because of society's perception of women. Um, and there is so much pressure on us. So this for me is the biggest idea. And people, banging on with an Ashtanga or a hot yoga practice after 40, and it's not suitable. It's not giving your body what it needs anymore. It's really not. So you really need to integrate, weights into your practice, more standing postures, really looking at that weight bearing exercise and bringing it into a more restorative or yin level.
And you have a big connection with Bali. Tell us about what Bali is in your life and what it brings to you.
Big smile. Bali is my favorite place in the world. It's a very spiritual place. So, Bali has a huge yoga community, and I just love it. It's the island of the gods. It has a magical energy about it. It is the most spiritual place. The people are fantastic. It's um the main religion is Balinese Hinduism, and it's kind of a combination of Hinduism and Balinese culture. And there's actually no word for religion. It's just everyone does it. It's just
Wow.
life. It's
Yeah.
just everyone's lifestyle. So they don't think about, we would say, are you this religion? Are you this? There's no, it's not a religion. It's just their life. So all of the ceremonies, all of the prayers, all of the offerings, everything is just part of the life. And they just have, it's gorgeous. It's very like Buddhism and Hinduism as well. It's beautiful. So many different cultural influences.
And so when you're not in Bali, what do you
Mhm.
do to try and incorporate some of that thing that made you smile into your everyday life?
Well, I'm very fortunate to live in Singapore the rest of the time, obviously. But it's, just being thankful for being here because so many of us, so many people are not here. Being thankful for the opportunities that I still have ahead of me, of all of the people that I haven't met, the places that I haven't been, all the things I'm still going to do. Because now I'm not exhausted every day because I'm not getting up with a baby in the middle of the night and I'm not trying to run a corporate career. And I'm doing something that I love and I'm getting time to look after myself. And it's not as if that has just suddenly happened. In my 30s, even as the founder of YogaBellies, I was still running myself into the ground. I wasn't practicing what I was preaching.
Yeah.
But since my 40s, I've completely changed that. I am actually living what I'm teaching now. Um, And the difference is dramatic. In my 30s, I wasn't sleeping, I was stressed, I was, putting on a little bit of beef round the belly, as we all do, eating junk, all of that. But it's all completely changed because I'm like, this is my time and I'm going to take it back. So that's just, I'm so excited about life and everything I've still got to do.
Why do you think that the messaging around perimenopause and menopause is so negative all over the world? Or are there cultures where this is completely embraced?
I think it's so negative because for hundreds, thousands of years, women have been suffering in silence. Okay. So they even talking to other women don't want to admit it to you that they're in perimenopause or menopause. And um sometimes when I'll speak to women and they'll say, "Oh, I'm not anywhere near that." And I'm going, I'm looking at you and you are in perimenopause. I can tell you that right now, because your hair starts to get thinner and your skin dries up and all these lovely things that we get during perimenopause. And obviously men get better looking. So there you go, the irony once again. But yeah, so it's all this stuff. So nobody wants to admit it because it's like, because we have this perception, it's like admitting you're an old lady. And that's not the case. So we need to be talking about it. And the more that we talk about it, the less of a stigma there's going to be. But I think the thing that everyone focuses on, and the only thing I used to know about menopause was hot flashes. That was the only thing anyone knows about it. You
Yes,
see
that's
this,
pretty much the only
yeah,
thing that was ever talked about.
that's it. Because that is a visible symptom. You can see someone, and it's the one people would talk about because you can't really hide it. But there's so much to it. And I think by talking about it, we're allowing people to get support. And just the same as in the pregnancy and postnatal classes, just having a community of women around you, being able to say, do you know what? I get that too. I wake up in the middle of the night and have to change my sheets too because I'm so sweaty. Or, just having that validation that you're not the only person that's going through this, because that's a huge part of it. The fact that all these things are happening to you and you're going, what the hell is up with me? Why is no one talking about this? So that is why I think people focus on the few bad things that they know. They don't know there are solutions, natural and hormonal, and nobody wants to talk to them about it. So that's why I believe it is so negative.
And there's been a lot of change, at least in the UK.
Hmm.
I really appreciate people like Davina McCall. We had Lisa
Oh
Snow
yeah.
who came
Hmm.
onto Goldster recently. There's a lot of talk about there. Lots of celebrities are lending their names to
Yes.
menopause vitamins, those kind of things that they're on the sides of buses, quite openly embracing the fact that they're perimenopausal.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's changing. Do you think that's changing elsewhere in the world, living in Asia? Do you think it's a message that's getting across, or has it always been different in Asia? Has it been more acceptable?
I think it is getting out there, but I think with these things, Singapore seems to be kind of 20 years behind the UK with because it is quite a conservative culture. Certainly, when I went to see a GP and it was a terrible experience, she just outright told me, you're not in perimenopause, you're too young. And I was like, I've got this. No, you're just not. You can't be. And I was like, okay. Well, my mum had full menopause at 40. Doesn't matter. I was like, right. She knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
So and I'm hearing a lot of women here are having that experience as well. So hopefully, at this end of the world, we will catch up. My teachers and friends in Australia, they tend to have a slightly better experience, probably in parallel with the UK.
Right. That's interesting. So the messaging is getting out there, but it's definitely not worldwide yet.
It's still slow, and I think it's up to every one of us individually to talk about what we're experiencing. Now, I talk about it all the time. I talk about it in social media. I'm always banging on about it. And people are like, "Why are you talking about this?" We don't want to know. Stop talking about all your symptoms. But I talk to people about it all the time because I want them to be able to talk as well. And when I speak to women about it, 9 times out of 10, they'll go, "I've got that as well." That happens to me. And a lot of these things can be embarrassing or you don't want to shout about them. So I've taken it upon myself to shout about it in the hope that other women will be able to talk about it as well.
So you do a lot of teaching at festivals. Tell us what the
Yes.
atmosphere there is like, because as you said, a lot of your classes might be online. You might not meet those people in person. But when
Yeah.
you go to a festival, how many
Hmm.
people do you teach in a class and what is the mood there like?
So well, it depends on the festival. The next one I'm doing is the Wonder Fruit Festival in Thailand in December, and it's kind of described as the Burning Man of Asia. And there's so many spiritual people there. It's awesome. So you'll have women, you'll have men. And I'm doing a divine feminine workshop. So whenever I do that at a festival, it tends to be I'll have women and men. Tend to have a lot of gay men in my Divine Festival workshops as well. And because obviously every one of us has masculine and feminine inside, so it's about embracing that feminine. But yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great energy. I usually make loads of new friends as well, and that's the thing about yoga. It does bring people together, and I think when you are talking about things and people see you're approachable and that you're open to this, then they will come to you and talk to you about it as well.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating that you're in that space where people feel that they can talk and ask for advice, and that, as you say, they might start realizing perhaps symptoms they didn't even realize were symptoms, that if
So
other
many
people are
times.
talking about it. And I think that's the case with men and women with many different health
Yeah,
problems. They don't actually realize they've got a health problem until they hear someone else talking and think, oh,
exactly.
I didn't realize my feet weren't meant to hurt the whole time, or I didn't realize
Yeah.
my I've heard people say in the past, I had no idea until I talked to my friend's dad, and he told me that he was going through it too.
Hmm.
So there is, in general, there is a reluctance to admit, perhaps, that we're not perfect, that things are going wrong, and I think with women particularly, they've got used to putting up with things. So
Yeah.
perhaps there's a real change that needs to come about there with actually embracing the fact that this is, as you say, an exciting new era. And that's something that the media doesn't want us to think. It wants
No.
us to think, as you said, that there is the crone. I'd love you to talk about the idea of the wise woman persona of the
Yeah.
postmenopausal woman.
So something I talk about a lot is the triple goddess. There's actually four. So the maiden, mother, enchantress, and crone. So each of these goddess archetypes actually relates to a female life stage. So I say perimenopause, that's the enchantress phase or the wild woman. So we're re-embracing our true self, we're having adventures, we're embracing our sexuality, exploring that, all these different, very, very exciting time. And then menopause is the wise woman or crone phase. And what that's all about is about loving the fact, loving and embracing all of the wisdom that we have gained over the years, all of the experiences, everything that we know, because you're actually a very powerful person at that time. And also, in ancient temples and stuff, what would have happened is the postmenopausal women would have been the senior priestesses in the temple because and also the most sexually active women because they couldn't get pregnant. So they would actually been like the top priestesses in the temple and
That sounds great. I
admired.
think we should definitely bring back that
I
concept.
know, absolutely. And they were are admired and respected for their wisdom and experience of life.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
that's
that's
something that
that's
we look back at matriarchal societies and at
yeah,
history, and we've lost all of that, haven't we? And maybe it's time
absolutely.
to embrace that and to
Yeah.
start thinking that, yes, this is the time now that we've got so many women talking about that, and
Hmm.
more women living well
Yeah,
into, the new age. I mean, in the past, of course, perhaps this wouldn't have been an issue because so many people, men and women, died younger than the
absolutely.
age that women start to go through menopause. So perhaps this is something that it's taken a very long time to accept that we are living into a postmenopausal, perhaps a postmenopausal age.
Yeah,
We're all living longer, and that there's so much life to embrace.
exactly. And I think, I mean, I meet two groups of women. I meet women who, like myself, are like, yes, let's do this. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to do all the things I've never got to do before. I'm going to really think about who I am as a person outside of being a wife and a mother, because you haven't thought about that for 10 or 20 years a lot of the time. So, really looking at it from that positive point of view, and then you've got the people. I've seen women, 40-year-old women, who feel and subsequently look about 60 because they're just like, oh, I'm old now, I can't do this. And, they're thinking like, oh, I'm not young anymore. And they'll actually say that and you hear it. And what they're telling you, I can't do that. I'm too old for this. And it's that negative mindset. And that's what makes the biggest difference. That's why you have to start with the mindset. So you can think about getting older in menopause as the worst thing that's going to happen. That's set your life over. Or you can think, I'm an enchantress. I'm the wild woman. I've got all of this, and then I'm going to become a wise woman. So it doesn't even stop there. It's like, so
We've got
you've
a comment
you've
here
got
that
all the
says,
best bits.
I feel like I'm 90 now and I'm only 54. So, so for somebody who's feeling like that, and perhaps for somebody we know that quite often depression goes
Yeah.
as well with hormonal changes.
Hmm.
what would be your first baby steps for somebody who feels, they can't yet embrace that, they haven't managed to change their
Yeah.
mindset? What would be their baby steps to starting to improve their quality of life so they can get to the point where they feel confident enough to do that first yoga class, to start embracing the fact that this is a new phase of life?
Take yourself off Instagram. That would be the first
Yes,
step. Yeah, because everyone's on there with their filters and their apps making them skinny and all this. And it's because we are, as women, under so much pressure to maintain this maiden facade that we're still 21. We're not bloody 21. I wouldn't be 21 again if you paid me.
I wouldn't
Like,
want to be 21 again either. No,
right?
no way.
And I don't want to look 21 either. I want to look fierce and fabulous. I want to look good for me. I want to feel good. For me, it's about having energy and enthusiasm and excitement. That's what I want. So it's like, yeah, for me, the first thing would be is working your mindset. So even if you're thinking like physical yoga, it's not for me, shamelessly pumping my book, but it will explain it better, like positive aging mindset. It's about getting your head, shifting your mind from aging is bad and horrible, the end of life at 40, to actually 40 is literally the beginning of my life. This is now about me and nobody else. There might be other people in my life, but I'm going to actually give myself everything I didn't before because this is it. I've got like maybe another 40 years on this world if I'm really lucky, but I am going to live my best life now. I'm going to do all those things that I couldn't do because I needed a job. I had kids to look after. I had husbands to look after, mums to look after, all of this. I'm going to take this time for me now and I'm going to be utterly selfish about it because I can't help other people either unless I'm doing that.
Yes. Yeah, think about it. It's a bit like the aeroplane, isn't it? Put your mask on before you help others, because otherwise you
Absolutely.
pass out through oxygen starvation and be no good to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in our 20s and 20s, we're out partying and drinking and doing whatever we're doing, staying up till hours. In our 30s, we've got kids and we're not sleeping because of that. So it's really about take that time to give yourself that self-care that you didn't get.
So somebody mentioned your journal earlier in the chat. Tell us about it. It's called Unleashing Your Radiant Life. Tell us
Yes, I've got
about
that
it.
one somewhere. So unleashing your radiant life is because I'm always talking like this to people. Everyone was saying to me, you must have something like how do I'd love something to help me kind of take what's in your yoga pause book and translate it into my life. So in the Unleash Your Radiant Life journal, it's kind of split into different sections. So it's like, what do you want? It's basically a plan for the rest of your life, right? So it's saying, what do you want in relationships? What do you want in career, if you want a career? Finances, what needs work? What do you want to do? Adventures, what adventures do you want to have? What's still on your bucket list? All the different friends and family, all the different things that you want. So it has a place as well for tracking your perimenopause and all of these different things, your symptoms and stuff. But the main thing is it's a plan to live the best possible life. So I'm writing it down, you're committing to it, you're saying, right, I've always wanted to do this and I'm going to do it by this time. That's when I'm going to do it. And this is what I want from a relationship, and I'm not going to put up with anything less than that. And really looking at what are your values and priorities, because when was the last time you actually sat down and thought, what's really important to me? It's usually what's important to you as a family, you as a wife, you as a part of a workplace, you as an individual. So what do you want? So it's about unleashing your radiant life.
Brilliant. Thank you. This has been so helpful. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Good.
Bear with me because I'm just going to tell everybody what's coming up on Goldster. And I really think that you have given people some great advice for starting to
Fantastic.
embrace this, new age that many people are going into now, whether they're perimenopausal in that one day of menopause or on
Yeah.
their menopausal journey. And I think your enthusiasm is fantastic and that we should all
Thank
be
you.
embracing our wise woman persona. And if you're a
Absolutely.
man listening to this, I'd also like to say that you should be helping those women around you embrace their wise woman persona, because we really need to think about the fact that men are going through this as well,
Hmm.
alongside, and maybe at some point they'll actually discover the male menopause and what causes it.
Yeah.
So just to tell everybody what is coming up on Goldster. So on Thursday this week, I am talking to Jim Kelly, the author of The Skeleton Man. He's actually the son of a Scotland Yard detective, and that was later what would inspire his writing. He's worked in journalism, including at the Financial Times, And then he says that he was most inspired by Dorothy L. Sayers, his favorite English crime novel. And from that, he started writing crime fiction. He's a really well published crime writer, and his works are really fun and interesting. So if you're into crime writing that doesn't have a huge amount of gore in, I think you'll love his books. And then on Friday, I'm interviewing Ruth Lee. She is the author of a new book called A Great Deal of Ingenuity, a collection of Pride and Prejudice stories. This is really for all Jane Austen fans and for people who just love short stories and good stories. She knows the work of Jane Austen inside out, and she's created a really fun collection of short stories that shines a light on the lives of characters from the novel. So what is it like to be those minor characters? And she's imagined all sorts of scenarios and written some really fascinating stories around them. And then on the 19th of October, next week, I am back with Adrian Magson, who is the author of Killing Waters. He's the author of hundreds of short stories. We haven't really had a short story writer on before. And I'm really looking forward to talking to him about the craft of writing short stories, because it's so very different from writing novels. He's also written 29 books, and he writes wonderful fictional characters. And then Humphrey will be back on Friday, the 20th of October. He is interviewing the thriller writer Ken DeClaver, a psychiatrist in Dallas, Texas, and he also worked as a physician diplomat. And he's going to be talking about his book, The Last Violinist. On the 26th of October, I'm interviewing Francesca Wade, who is a wonderful debut author of a book called Square Haunting. It's a non-fiction book focusing on the lives of 5 extraordinary women, including Virginia Woolf and Dorothy L. Sayers. Can't believe she's getting a mention twice today. All of whom lived in Mecklenburg Square in London between the wars. It's a really interesting book. It's a great premise for a book, and it's beautifully written. Some wonderful real life stories. And then join me again on Friday, the 27th of October. Just for those of you who haven't looked up yet to see what our book of the month is, we are reading this month The Whalebone Theatre by Joanna Quinn. It's a great new novel by a debut novelist. It's absolutely gorgeous. The way it's written is stunning. And I think, knowing the Goldster audience, I think you're going to really like it. So if you're not sure what book to be reading this month, it is The Whalebone Theatre by Joanna Quinn. And join me on the 27th of October. Thank you again so much, Cheryl. It's been wonderful to talk to you. I've got one question for you here. We've got a question. You mentioned Blue Lotus tea. Now, I would like you to talk about this, because we've got a question. Does it taste all right as it is? Do you need to add anything to it? And what is it? What's so good about it?
It actually tastes lovely. It doesn't have a very strong taste. It actually comes in the blue lotus flowers in a loose form. I don't know if you can get it in tea bags as well, but I like to make it in the teapot. Um, has traditionally been used in a lot of tantric and spiritual ceremonies over the years, and in some place it has been said to give you visions. I've never had visions with it, but I do sleep like a log, and it tastes very, very nice. You don't have to put anything in it at all.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'd never heard of Blue Lotus tea before, so I'm going to be
Fantastic.
heading off down to a health shop to find it.
Mm.
So thank you so much for today, Cheryl. I really
No
appreciate this.
problem.
Enjoy your life in Singapore, and good luck with
Thank
both
you.
books. And just to say, everybody, that the 18th of October is World Menopause Day, and Cheryl's book, Yoga Pause, will be available for free on the 18th of October on Kindle. I think that's right, is it, Cheryl? Just for that
Correct.
one day on Kindle.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, a great initiative there. And for any of you who's thinking, oh, I must read this, I can recommend it. It's very easy to read, it's well written, and it taught me a lot. So, and I thought I'd looked into this subject, but it's really taught me a lot. Enjoy your
Fantastic.
yoga practice, everybody. If you haven't
Thank
been
you.
brave enough to try yoga on Goldster, go on, do it. And I can tell you, you don't have to put your video on. I'm a real wuss. I don't put my video on. Maybe when you feel more confident, you can. But we have wonderful teachers here on Goldster, and it's a great thing to get into. So be brave, take that first step, perhaps in World Menopause Month. Give your body a bit of a treat. Have a good week, everybody. I will see you on Thursday and Friday this week. So do come back 12 p.m. Thursday and 12 p.m. Friday. Take care, everybody. Bye.
that? About $80? Okay, right, I'll give you 100 so you can do something today, alright? This up here. Hello, Kucho. Chicho, la dog, chicho. Oh, Chicho the dog. Then I'm going to go and tell about the job and then I'll be back at it too. The doggy, your dress is coming. One? Okay, exactly. The thing is just takes me an hour to send the money, right? So for dinner, uh, stir fry beef broccoli. Yeah. The winter clothes, mom, is that one. What was the bed bag? Okay. Right, I'll be.
Definitely what these sunglasses and as we buy it with me. Because the glasses also in shape. Right. Oh shit. What is it? What is it? The earphone? Oh. Right, I'll need to take the photos and then. Right, I'll get this sorted. Without mathematics. Right. Right.
Right. That off. That off. Yeah. You darling, wish me luck. I'm going to my first date counselling. Are you excited?
You said with the message you have to come, so
Yes, it's 11:30.
I can see you after search from here.
Okay, so you're just going to walk over there and get a taxi together, that makes sense. It's St Regis, isn't it? Yeah. Excellent work. What's this pen work? No, really. This one does, we'll take that. Right.
What's wrong with that? Just I said with the message.
Helen, I've got a new job. Text him yourself. I've already texted his mum that you're going. What else do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? It says, would you like to go to University Studios at 11:30? That is exactly what it says. Nothing else in there. Okay? Does that meet with your requirements? I'm a wee bit nervous, darling. Like, what the heck? Yeah. If I bring my chisel. Yeah. Right. Hello, my little flumper pump. That's actually what you have to look down. Get in. Get in. This is you dropping off again. Right. Sorry, darling, I'm just a bit nervous. You could wish me luck if you wanted. Or not bother. I'm sure I could do this with Oh, I don't know if you got the stroke. The dog's so fat. Right, so I've got this. And I've got this in this all the way. I've got shin minute 10. Dog's getting here about 12:30, Stephanie, and then we'll go back and do that. That's a busy tea around. Boys, don't work on your bum, please. Okay. It's okay to be nervous, by the way. Just means you're looking forward to something. You like me up, you don't like my thumb. See that? What's going on? No, you don't like my bag either. This is a bit of a strict no licky policy here, baby. Okay? No licky. Days it on the 17th? 18th? Is it the 18th? Is it? You sure? Alright, you guys.
Nike socks, but I don't know.
Right, I've got a beautiful. Oh, look at these Tootsie Pops. If I give you the scissors, can you trim these? Can you use the nail clippers? Oh, I want scissors. I can. I can do them, but you need to cut the nails, take the nails, because it's nice to do it. It's a ridiculous thing, that's how you get it. What's wrong? So I don't know. Just stop for a second. Right. Grab it, I'll do one second, it's actually 2 minutes, so just need to put it out there. Beautiful. Right.
We'll just have to stop Jojo.
Yeah. 14-year-old boy, it's not on it, cut your toes. Is it? No, big boy now. Cut one tooth. So you're gonna have to finish.
Yeah.
Right, okay, next to the clippers,
Enjoy with these in the phone. Keep it cool.
okay, just use butts.
Give me kisses.
I love you so much.
I love you so much too, Tootsie Pops.
I'm totally going to eat your things.
Right, see you later, baby gator. Hi, everybody. Stop. Stop. Ah. Stop là, s'il te plaît. Keep dog, wicked big dog. Dog do. Dog do, dog hot. Dog do. Dog, 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 dog. Keep dog, keep dog. It's your dog, don't get dog. Dog do. Dog That is 100 cosmos.
Can you on the one, the aircon there, at that side? So the floor is dry.
Okay.
I'm mopping the floor. Cosmo, you go to your case. Cosmo. Are you going out, Helen? Huh? Are you going out?
Yeah.
Where?
Universal Studios.
So no lunch?
No lunch.
What time your flight tomorrow?
Like
Huh?
late at night is okay. So like I go to airport around 9:30.
9:30
Mm.
morning?
No, 9:30 p.m. Cosmo, come here.
Tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Oh. With your daddy, right?
Yeah. Keep dog, keep dog, keep dog, dog. That's your dog, dog, never. Keep dog, keep dog. Doggy, doggy, do. Doggy, do. And my room, come on, come on. Happy, 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 happy. Okay, so. Cosmo. Huwag kang lakad ng lakad. Come, go inside your cage. Cosmo, go inside your cage. I'm mopping the floor, Cosmo. Cosmo, Cosmo. And then what time you go out? Huh? What time you go out? Well, because I go into UC. I didn't eat your breakfast here at the table. No eating at your room. I saw ants already. Hello, hello, Chinito. Hello, hello, Chinito. Kusmo. Where you study in college, Philip?
I don't know yet.
You okay?
Probably, yeah.
How many years more? 3 years, right? Huh? 3 years more?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
You don't need lunch, Helena.
No.
awan ni half minute na. Yung ma-start na. Start na bukas ang kapanyahan. Siguro na ako magandang siguro tayo bisa ka. Siguro tayo pala. Sige. So, sikat ati kumatang. Pagdawag ka kini kuwas, pinihas na yung kwarta. Manuway higay. Manuway higay kuwas. Manuway higay mo sa ang kapos. Ano? Kaya ito wala. Kaya ito wala. May sama. Kami ang gawal-awal. Kusmo. Ay, napamuhan din nilipatan ni Giant Kusmo. Kapupunas ko lang.